Hi, everyone. Welcome to another Book Talk Friday. I'm Christopher, Mono County Library Director and co-host of the Oxygen Starved podcast. And I'm back with two great reads you can get from the library, one old and one new. Now, I'm going to start with the new this time, and I'm really excited about this one. Now, imagine it's the 1930s and you need to get a divorce. Well, depending on which state you lived in, chances are it was a really difficult thing to do, unless you were a resident of Nevada. In Nevada, all you needed to do was appear before a judge, and to become a resident, you only needed to live within the state's borders for 6 weeks. Thus, this whole cottage industry sprang up of divorce ranches, mostly around the Reno and Carson City area, because remember, back then, Las Vegas was still just this little desert scrub town. And basically, you would go take an extended vacation on one of these ranches, enjoying horse rides and fishing and excursions into the mountains and the towns until your 6 weeks had passed and you can get your divorce. Well, this is the setting for Better Luck Next Time, fast, fun second novel from Julia Claiborne Johnson that just came out in January. And what's even better, the library is hosting a Meet the Author event with Julia on Thursday, July 15th at 6 p.m. And it'll be on Zoom, so anyone in the county can join the conversation. Now, the book is told as a reminiscence by the elderly Ward Bennett, looking back on his time as a 24-year-old ranch hand at the Flying Leap Divorce Ranch in Reno, particularly one season when the ranch welcomes a colorful cast of characters waiting out their residency requirements, including Emily, who has left her husband back in San Francisco but is wavering on whether a divorce is the right thing to do, and the adventurous Nina, a glamorous heiress who flies in on her own plane to get what is her third divorce. Ranch hands are expected not just to tend the ranch, but to help keep the guests entertained, although not to get entangled with them. And, well, it isn't long before Nina and Emily have Ward wrapped into their hijinks. This is a novel that dives into some serious and relatable personal issues, but the writing is crisp and witty, and it's been earning comparisons to the fast-paced classic Hollywood movies of the same period. Barnes & Noble had this as a Book of the Month pick, and Publishers Weekly gave it a starred review, saying Johnson's rollicking comedy sizzles thanks to the immensely appealing voice of its aging narrator, and it brings with it the clever banter and farcical situations of a classic Capra film. Now, that Capra reference brings me to the old. Some of you will already know that the classic Hollywood writer and director Frank Capra had a cabin at Silver Lake in the June Lake Loop area, one of the many Hollywood types from his era that came up to the Eastern Sierra to fish and to just get away. Capra's probably best known for his movies It Happened One Night, Mr. Smith Goes to Washington, Meet John Doe, and of course, It's a Wonderful Life. Well, Cry Wilderness is a novel written by Frank Capra in the mid-1960s when he had retired from filmmaking but not yet storytelling. This slim novel is set in June Lake, and the story is classic Capra, the small-town everyman, Deputy Sheriff Lefty Wakefield, up against a corrupt government system based in Bridgeport, intent on selling off land to developers for the booming tourist industry. Let me read you a little bit of the blurb, and I should let you know that Capra makes himself a character in this story. It's a timeless tale chock full of small-town intrigue and colorful characters, culminating in a courtroom showdown that will rock Mono County to its very core, as Capra, his wife, and the sheriff fight the forces of corruption in an effort to protect the most vulnerable among us. A true David and Goliath story about little people taking on big business and the politicians they pay. Now, Capra didn't publish this book in his lifetime. It was his family and the director Ron Howard who brought it out 3 years ago. I found it a fun look back at what Mono County would have been like back in the late 1940s, in which the story is set. The world's a smaller one, but the issues are just the same. And it's peppered with Capra's obvious love for the June Lake area. He recounts how he was introduced to it by the actor Wallace Beery in the 1920s, who would fly them in on his personal plane from Hollywood to go fishing for the weekends. Landing with a full plane on June Lake Beach back then wasn't an issue, but at high altitude, taking off was a whole other matter, and the way Capra describes it involved a tree stump, a length of rope, and an axe. This is Cry Wilderness by Frank Capra. This is Better Luck Next Time by Julia Claiborne Johnson. And remember to join us on Thursday, July 15th at 6 p.m. to meet her and hear her talk about this novel. You can find more details on the library's website at monocolibraries.org, in any of our branches, or just keep an eye out on the community listings in the local papers. In the meantime, stay safe and happy reading.